Good afternoon. It's April 23rd. Welcome to the Administrative Committee meeting of the Moscow City Council. I am Gina Terusio. To my left is Ann Zabala, Councilwoman, and to her left is Gary Riedner, our City Supervisor. The first item on our agenda today is approval of Administrative Committee April 9 minutes. Did you get a chance to look at those, Ann?
Yeah, they look good.
Okay. We'd like to put those on consent, please. Or we just approve them?
Just approve them.
Okay, second item is Coulter's Creek request for Sidewalk Cafe. Looks like Tyler Palmer is coming our way.
Tyler and I will be playing the part of Lori Hopkins, city
It takes
clerk.
two of you.
Yeah,
I
it does. It
understand
takes two.
Tyler's
entirely.
still not up to measure, but.
It takes two men to match any woman, anytime, all the time.
Why did you have to say
Well,
that?
It's the fact. It's the
I'd
truth
like to
of the matter.
second that motion, my
I live in
friend.
a household with three women. I know I'm outnumbered constantly. Yeah, I'm actually really excited to be bringing this forward. I think this is kind of a cool thing. What we have is, as you know, we have our downtown is really the heart of the community for Moscow, and its vibrancy is something that is well known throughout the area. It's what draws people in for events like our farmers market, art walk, and just generally come to Moscow and go downtown. And one of the great things about the downtown is that it's human scaled, which means that it's set up for people to be there, and it's for people to interact, and that right of way is really important for that purpose, and it's a great service to our community that we have that. In 2007, the council formalized a process for sidewalk cafes, and the sidewalk cafes, I think we've all seen them downtown. It's great to walk by and see people and have that vibrant interaction. What those sidewalk cafes require is some sort of separation between the public and where the people are sitting, and then also, requires a clear zone so that we make sure we have enough room for pedestrians in a wheelchair to get by and all of those things. We've had some requests start to come in for people wanting to make those sidewalk cafes more aesthetically pleasing and have them better match up with the businesses that they're putting in downtown. I think, we've seen a real upscaling of our downtown, a lot of people coming in and putting money into their play spaces. And it's been really great because the council's had the goal for such a long time to enhance the feel of the north end of downtown. For a while, it really felt like 3rd Street was a barrier, and we're starting to get some really great businesses opening up on the north end of downtown that's really fleshing out the north side. And so as part of that, we've had a request come in from Coulter's Creek. They've recently opened a tasting room, a beautiful facility there on the north end of downtown. And the request was a little bit different from the request that we've had in the past. And so we had some discussions with Gary and Lori and myself as to what the philosophy ought to be with these sidewalk cafes, and is there a way that we can accommodate people who want to do something to better dress up their frontage while still meeting the needs of the community for the right-of-way. So with that, we have a representative from Coulter's Creek here with us today.
Oh,
And
really?
if you don't mind, I would just ask him to speak briefly as to what it is that they're attempting to do with their frontage there.
Okay. Nope, you have to come up here and sit down. Tell us where you live, what your name is, that sort of thing.
My name is Bobby Wilson. I work for Coulter's Creek. I'm the construction manager, and I'm kind of to blame for what happened down there. Basically, when we started looking into the Sidewalk Cafe, the architect, I got asked he wanted to submit some plans, and then when I brought it to the city, there was just limited options, so I started throwing stuff at the city, and it was like, well, you can't drill a hole, you can't. So it was very limited to what I actually could accomplish. So then I met with Tyler, and we kind of came up with a plan that makes it semi-permanent, but then it could be removed pretty fast. If you've been in the facility, we don't even have signage on the glass. The whole point is that the architect, and we have art against the wall, we have a truss. It's pretty, if you spend some time looking around, in my opinion, it's humble, it's kind of an art project in and of itself. So we have a big, large group. The whole point was the glass is going to what draw you in. The storefront is the interior of the building. So the architect kept sending me stuff, and I kept getting told, you can't do this. And I just kind of ran out of ideas. And then Tyler and I kind of came to a thing that might work. And so that was the idea, is to try and leave everything I'd been told is like a fence, and it just takes the aesthetic away from the front of our building. I mean, I've been in there many days, and it's just people walk up, they look in the glass, and they don't, sometimes they come in, sometimes they don't, but it's just, if you had a big fence there, it just cuts off everything that the architect was trying to to get out of down. I mean, it's one of the few buildings downtown where there's light coming in both directions, and it's pretty big, open, unique space. And so the idea is to try and keep it somewhat that way and not have a big barricade out in front of it.
Thanks, Bobby. So yeah, as Bobby mentioned, I mean, one of the things I've loved about working for Moscow is that we really try to get to yes when we can. We try and take a look at all the needs that we have and see if there's a way that we can make things work. So when Bobby and I met, you know, the requirements in the code, what it requires is that it be a temporary installation. We could have something happen to where we need to come and say, hey, look, you know, this is still the public right of way. We need this stuff out of the way. We've got a big civil rights march going down Main Street. We need this space. But trying to balance that with our desire to have it be an aesthetically pleasing place. And when somebody does want to come and spend some money to make something nice and beautiful, we want to be able to try and accommodate that as we can. And so what we're proposing is kind of a pilot program as we work through an update. Lori and I have been working on an update to the Sidewalk Cafe code that would make it an easier process, that would also spell out what can and can't be done better, and trying to add some flexibility to add some aesthetically pleasing things to this. And so what they're proposing is to actually add a decking material. We're talking a low decking material, but just to level it, so it makes it level, and so rather than sitting on the sidewalk, which can be uneven out front, there's a decking material that's consistent with the look of the inside of the facility, still having the fence along the outside, but then they would go the extra mile in setting up the deck material so it could be taken apart in segments and it wouldn't be anchored in any way into the concrete in the public right-of-way. So that if we did run into the condition where we needed to come out and say, hey guys, it's got to move, we got this thing coming up tomorrow, they can get out there, they can pull it relatively easily. And so what we're proposing with this, and this is the reason that we came today, is that it is a little bit of a shift in direction. It is something where we're trying to enhance the aesthetics of what we can have downtown while maintaining the flexibility within the right-of-way. And so we wanted to bring that before you and let you take a look at it and give us your thoughts.
Sure.
This is one of those things that, as you know, the public right-of-way in downtown stretches from the front of each building, the entire width of the sidewalk and the street. Usually, there's only a couple of ways that anyone can use the public right-of-way for private uses. One is we have a vendor's ordinance which allows people to vend in certain places subject to certain conditions. We've allowed sidewalk cafes to allow those places that want to have an alfresco type outside presence can do that. And you'll notice there are different types of sidewalk cafes. There are sidewalk cafes that are just as, what's the name of the little restaurant? Bloom does not have a fence around their place because they don't serve alcohol outside. You do have to have a separation, some kind of boundary, if you're going to be serving alcohol. Hence, Casa Lopez and some of those where they serve outside tapped. So we regulate that by temporary installation, and that's called an encroachment agreement typically. And it sets out the policies under which you will allow someone to have a temporary installation. Now, businesses being businesses, they want to try and enhance business, enhance the customer experience, so on and so forth. So the city clerk's office, who's charged with regulating this, sometimes has situations. We've had permanent installations or semi-permanent installations placed in the public rights-of-way downtown that were one of those situations we're working through right now. We've had people who've in sidewalk vending want to have a much larger footprint than is allowed by the code, so on and so forth. So naturally, there's always going to be a yin and yang to where
Absolutely.
the maintenance of the public right-of-way, and that is not city property, it is public right-of-way. The public has a right to use that right-of-way. So allowing a private use of the right-of-way is something that is regulated by the city. I think something as Coulter's Creek is thinking about doing, a little bit unique, and the current resolution does not prohibit staff from allowing it to happen as much as it's going to be a little bit unique. So the council, the mayor are going to be engaged about this by the public, want to be able to explain what's going on. Pilot program allows us to try and gauge it to see if there are enhancements, things that we run into, problems, however it goes. But typically what happens when you have an installation in downtown, other shop owners then want to emulate or expand upon that. So rather than have something that you have to turn around and say, no, that's cool for Coulter's Creek, it's not cool for somebody else, we want to try and avoid that. Certainly, there are going to be unique situations, but we want to be as standardized as we can. So Tyler's comments, and I think Bobby's comments about, you want people to come look in, see what, the tremendous investment that's been made down there.
Right.
But there are certain regulations we have to deal with. One is to try to not inhibit the public's use of the right-of-way and necessities, as Tyler indicated. Want to make sure it's safe, number two. So if it is a decking material, it'll have to be made safe so people don't trip on it and that
Right.
sort of thing.
Right.
They can handle all that. That's more of a practical nature. But if they are going to be serving alcohol in the public right-of-way, then there has to be that delineation.
Yeah.
So there is going to have to be some kind of fence or barrier. So with that in mind, from what Tyler's been talking to Coulter's Creek, I think it's something that we can do. We just wanted to advise the council that it is a little bit unique, but if we're going to make downtown as inviting as we can, enhance the business opportunities down there while not limiting the public's use of the right-of-way, we think we can give this a shot for a year and see how it goes.
Really, the barrier that we were talking about was originally a stainless steel pipe, so it was very slender and thin, so that it didn't obstruct anything, but it still constituted a barrier.
Okay.
So that's the same thing we would do, but now it would be fastened to that deck, so it could be removed quickly, pulled up, and then the deck could be pulled up.
I appreciate the pilot project concept too. Did we not do that with the sidewalk cafes to start with? Wasn't that where we didn't we do that at
Well,
one point?
I think when it was formalized in 2007, that was they'd been popping up, and so then there was this effort to kind of, okay, we need to instill some regulations. So I think this is just the next step in that evolution of our downtown growing up.
Yeah. Do you have any questions or any kind of?
Just about snow removal.
Concerns?
How will it impact snow removal?
So the adjacent property owner is responsible for snow removal in front of their space, and so that's something that they'll have to focus on. We already have several of these style cafes that are out. Some of them pull up during the winter, and
Yeah.
so they a lot of them will remove during the winter, and so then snow removal isn't as impacted by something like that. So that's something that we'll have to look at in design and then also in implementation as far as how that goes and how that's operated.
And frankly, that's one of the things that we're looking at is whether sidewalk cafe installations should have to be removed during the winter season so that snow removal and the public's use of the right-of-way isn't impeded. But that's something that'll be discussed. We've had some businesses who store their chairs out in front, during the winter. We've had some businesses who have not pulled out their railings, but there are no tables in there during that season. So want to get some sort of standardized, so it doesn't look like an abandoned,
Right. I agree with
facility during the winter. So we'll work through that.
Okay.
That was it for me.
Yeah, I think it's consensus that we recommend approval of this project. I think it's very awesome, and I will be sitting out there.
All right. Thank
And
you.
I do think this is one of those that could be pulled up in the wintertime. I am a hardy soul, and I'm not going to be sitting there in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So, I think that's kind of it's kind of the rites of spring. All of a sudden, there it is, and we're ready to have, that's a good idea.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Bobby, thanks.
We want to go on consent with that? Or do we want to have, it's not really a,
I'll discuss that with the mayor and we'll see.
okay, awesome. Okay, our third item, Dwight Curtis is at the ready, is the Rendezvous in the Park 2018 approval request for beer garden for East City Park. Mr. Curtis, Dr. Curtis,
That pretty much sums it up.
you're done.
July 19th, 20th, and 21st are the dates of this year's Rendezvous in the Park. The event goes from 4 to 10 p.m., or at least the beer garden. Nothing's changed from the past on this. It'll be the secured internal area, though that whole part is fenced off again. The police chief is supportive of this. We've not had any issues in the past regarding alcohol, and it's also been reviewed by the city attorney. The map was in the packet too, but it has not changed, and that's all I have. If you have any questions.
So the size has not changed? Nothing's different?
Correct.
Okay. Do you have any questions or anything for him? Okay, I say we recommend approval of the beer garden request for Rendezvous in the Park 2018.
Consent agenda.
Well, it says and attached resolutions, so,
Resolutions can be on the consent agenda, ordinances may not.
okay, we'll put you on consent.
Okay.
All
great.
right,
Thank you so much.
thank you, you're welcome.
That was easy.
The fourth item is the Lola Clyde Park Sign Design. Park Sign Design.
There we go.
David
Tongue
Schott.
twister.
I'm getting anxious to see this.
Well, thank you. We are asking for council consideration and ultimately approval for the Lola Clyde Park sign design. The reason for this is it varies from our standard park sign, so. So our standard park sign, this will have the additional plaque mounted onto it. It'll be 12 inches high by 8 inches wide. It's aluminum, the black background and silver depiction of Lola Clyde. There's some significance here. It was an article in the 1982 National Geographic magazine. We did reach out to the family, and they've pledged to donate $1,775 for the purchase of the sign. Excuse me, I'm having technical difficulties here. So this is the proof of the sign. Like I said, it mirrors one of our standard park signs with the addition of the plaque with Lola Clyde holding a pie. It's a wonderful picture. So this is the actual photo from the 1982 National Geographic magazine. We did learn that we do need to give the photographer credit, so there'll be an addition of his website listed on the bottom of the picture. We did receive permission for the copyright to use this picture. The image on the left is just out of the catalog on what that plaque will look like. It won't have any of the verbiage on there, but so her image will be inscribed onto that plaque. Estimated cost for the project is $2,000, $1,400 for the sign, $250 for the plaque. There was some cost for the permission for the copyright, and then we'll encase the sign in plexiglass. We've been having some issue with our park signs getting eaten by the birds, so the plaque will be recessed into the sign so that plexiglass will be flush. We do have this in our current fiscal year budget. I believe the budget's $2,125 for the project. So the Parks and Rec Commission considered this on March 22nd, and they recommended approval of the sign design. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Which vendor do we use, or which one will we use for this?
Fred Cole out of Coeur d'Alene makes our park signs, and so
Great.
Okay. I don't have any questions. I think it's darling. I think it's a darling addition, and I like it, so. So, just so I understand, it's a $2,000 project, of which $1,775 is being pledged by the family.
yes, correct.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I think that we're in agreement. We'd like to recommend approval of this park sign design. And we'll put it on consent?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
David, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the request to purchase fire truck. Mr. Reedner.
Thank you. Let me just have a second to pull up a spreadsheet here.
Most certainly.
Okay, as noted in the agenda, we have been tasked by the city council to find a way to purchase fire trucks within our budget. As you know, prior to 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, almost 3 years ago, in the strategic plan, council indicated that we needed to address our aging fire apparatus issues. So one of the things we had first done is our last set of fire trucks we purchased with a general obligation bond. So we started down that path. In the meantime, as that evolved a little bit, as we were developing it, the fire apparatus still needed to be replaced. So at that point, the mayor and council directed that we see what we could do to try and purchase that aging fire apparatus within our current budget, so our fiscal year budget. So we came back with a proposal by which we purchased our first fire truck, ordered it, I believe, in May of 2017. It is due to be delivered in June of 2018 at a cost of approximately $520,000. When we first did this back in the early 90s, trucks were running about $220,000. So quite a bit of inflation over the past 20 years on these things. The fire trucks have a 20-year lifespan. We're beyond lifespan on, I believe, 2 of the trucks. The third one, either we will be at the end of this year, past the 20 years, or we're coming right upon it. So we will take them in order. The fire truck that is oldest will be replaced with the one to show up in 2018, and then we'll just take them by degrees after that. Under our current schedule, we intended that we would make the second fire truck purchase in 2019 for delivery in 2020. We have accumulated $362,204 in fleet capital in order to do that. Our proposal, and we will continue with this, by the way, was to budget a $350,000 in the FY 2019 budget, which would be added to that amount, allowing us to then order the fire engine. As it turns out, because we have a very favorable income demographic in Moscow, we are over 50% low to moderate income. It makes us competitive for community development block grants, which, as you know, are HUD grants administered through the Idaho Department of Commerce. One of the CDBG designations or eligibility is for community projects or community equipment like fire engines. Since we had that competitive edge, we applied for a CDBG grant for the full $500,000 for the to assist us with purchase of a fire engine. Since that time, in order to increase our competitiveness even more, that was amended to $289,000. We just got notice last week that that has been awarded.
Oh, yay.
So, in addition to the $362,000 that we've accumulated, we now have an additional $289,000, which is in excess of the expected purchase price of the fire engine, which, as you can see from the CCSR, is $545,472. There is a complication in that the federal government has recently imposed tariffs on the import of metals. One of those that's being impacted is aluminum. A significant amount of aluminum goes into these fire engines. The difference is an increase of approximately $15,500 for an increased cost because of that increased cost of aluminum. At that point, met with the mayor and staff and had to make a couple of determinations. One was, did it make any sense at all for us to proceed with purchase of the fire engine during this fiscal year with the accumulated funds, with the CDBG monies, in order to avoid that $15,500 of increased cost. In addition, there is a discount given if you order the fire engine and pay the purchase price up front, which is typically what we don't do. However, Pierce Fire Engines has been in business for years. We purchased it through a consortium. Hughes Fire Equipment is the dealer, and it's worked out very well so far. As I said, the fire engine that's currently being constructed should be here in June. So going through that, it was determined, met with the finance department and went through our budget, and we have the capacity and accumulation to order that fire engine. It has to be ordered prior to, excuse me, May 1st of 2018, and Hughes will discount it, if you will, or will not add the tariff amount on top of that. So if we order it by May 1st, then it's $15,200 or $15,500 that we won't have to pay in the future. We would take delivery of the engine in about a year, so it'd be roughly the same time frame as the one that we have. It does accelerate our schedule a little bit. The practical effect is we are trying, once we replace the aging fleet now, we will then gauge it so that we take the 20-year depreciation of those fire engines when they're no longer certified or at the end of life, and we'll take whatever, we have 4 right now, so that means we need to purchase one every 5 years, so we continue to rotate through the fleet. Of course, if we open another firehouse, add another engine, or more than one, we'll have to then take that 20 years and break it up even more. So as it sits right now, because we're accelerating this, we will likely surplus the engine at some point in order that we can, this is for the entire fleet, so that we can get back on that purchase an engine every 5-year schedule. With that being said, we did receive a letter of award from the Department of Commerce, which says that there are some things we need to do. We do have an invoice from Hughes that we can utilize. There is an environmental review record that needs to be established. Elisa is working on that right now. We aren't able to purchase the engine, go through procurement until all of this stuff is done. She's working on it, should have it done by the end of the week. And there were some other policies that needed to be documented as well. Tyler has been, the fleet department has been in touch with Hughes. As long as the engine is ordered by April 30th, we still get advantage of the 2 discounts, as long as they receive funding within 30 days after that. At any rate, with that being said, this is a way for us to essentially avoid an additional $15,500. Also note that traditionally the inflation rate on large fire apparatus is about a little over 5% per year. So we will also hopefully be avoiding an additional 5% increase as well. So it makes sense. What we're looking for is, since this needs, the order needs to be placed prior to April 30th, we would want the council, we're presenting this to both committees today, to get consensus from the individual committees. We will then come to the council on May 7th and ask for ratification of that action so that we can move ahead.
Okay. Will you clarify for me, please? I'm reading through here, there is a $15,600 tariff amount that you're talking about. You're talking about 2 discounts. Help me understand the second one.
The other
please.
discount is what you get for paying up front. Typically, what you do is you pay half up front, they begin construction, and then at a certain point in the construction or at the end of completion, you pay the additional half. Now, we're talking about $270,000, so it's
Okay.
a significant amount of money. Hughes would give us, or Pierce would give us, the advantage of what their dollar cost of money is, an advantage if we pay it up front.
Excellent. Okay.
And they have to go through all of the process. As I said, we're purchasing through a consortium out of Texas, I believe it is. So it's worked very well for us in the past.
Okay.
City of Boise uses the same consortium.
Do you have any questions?
Maybe I'm missing it. What's the dollar number on that second discount?
I don't know what it is. I believe last time it was about $17,000.
Oh, okay.
A little over 18,000. So combined would be about $33,000.
Definitely worth pursuing, I think. Okay, do you have any other questions or anything, Ann?
Looks good.
I really don't either. We recommend approval of the purchase of the Pierce Saber pumper and authorize staff to proceed with that purchase prior to May 1, 2018.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, that was the last item on our agenda. I would entertain.
I move that we adjourn.
Awesome,
Thank you.
thank you.